Stay safe out there. I'm your host Youssef, and these are 10 scary stranger danger incidents that will creep you out. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, ooh, candy. Number 10, Intruder. From Redditor Sub-Zero Fun, when I was about 12, I had a lot of issues with night terrors and rarely slept a whole night through. One night I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I sat down half asleep thinking of nothing but emptying my bladder and going back to bed, when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. There was a man standing by the other door to the bathroom staring at me, not moving. He was wearing a tattered gray jumpsuit and had a crutch, little to no hair. I don't remember how I got down into the basement where my parents slept, but suddenly there I was, hysterical. My dad finally went up and looked in the bathroom and kitchen. He saw nothing, but allowed me to sleep on the couch down there anyway. I didn't fall back asleep. About an hour or so later, I heard the sliding door to the bathroom from my sister's room and limping footsteps. The next morning, my dad searched around and noticed that the fridge and pantry had been raided. We never caught the guy. Number 9, Boogie Monster. From Redditor Gaz Mike, my sister had been taking sleeping pills because she was stressed out about the HSC, or the Australian version of the SAT, and wasn't getting much sleep. The problem was they were giving her weird night terrors. I don't know why this didn't make her stop taking them, but whatever. Anyway, one night she thought she heard breathing under her bed, so she looked and saw a large bearded man in dirty clothes there. She screamed and ran to her parents' room, but they dismissed it as just being the pills. She was semi-convinced, so she went back and forced herself not to check under the bed again. The next morning, they woke up and the entire bottom floor of the house was messed up and a bunch of stuff was stolen. Number 8, Good Karma, Bad Karma. From Redditor Ernest is Important, I used to live next to an eye hospital. One day, walking home, I was stopped by an old man who clearly had trouble seeing. He asked me to help him across the road to the hospital. I agreed, and he grabbed a hold of my hand very tightly. At this point, I noticed his fingers were stained brown from tobacco, covered in scabs, and his fingernails were very long and dirty. I started to think that my good deed for the day would be a bit regrettable. When we got to the other side of the road, he still had my hand grasped so tightly I couldn't politely pull away. "Do you want to see my eye?" he said. One of his eyes was squeezed shut. With his free hand, he pulled the lids apart, and I realized to my horror that he had no eyeball, just an empty socket. I started babbling, trying to be polite still, about how that was very interesting, but I had to go. Then he uttered the immortal words, "Do you want to put your finger in there?" Number 7, Chase. I was 16 and walking home from work late at night when a guy pulled up beside me and started asking, "Do you live around here? And where are your parents?" His questions got more personal. He asked me what school I went to, where I worked, etc. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You're a really brave girl for going out alone this late." I was scared and didn't know what to do. Then he said, "I'll be right back," and drove off. Once he left, I started bolting the rest of the way home, thinking he'd come back for me if I didn't make it home quickly enough. He swerved back a few minutes later and saw me running, pulled up closer to me, and began screaming for me to get in his car. I just kept running as he trailed me, and I ended up hurrying into a 24-hour store and called my dad for a lift, who was just really annoyed I'd woken him up and didn't care at all about what was happening. Later on, I felt stupid for disclosing so much personal info to a stranger, and I now realize he was only trying to gauge my vulnerability. Number 6, Almost Kidnapped. From Redditor Jackie O'Face, I didn't realize until years later that I was almost snatched. I grew up in a small town. I was out playing in the yard with my 2 younger siblings like every other summer day. A guy pulled up alongside the yard in a truck and called me over. He asked my name and if I was having a good summer. He said he could really use my help since he was out looking for his lost puppy. "I could show you a photo of the puppy if you come closer," he said. "No, closer. The picture is small. Can you please help me?" I yelled to my brother on the other side of the yard, "Dan, come help us find a puppy." I have to assume he thought I yelled "Dad" because he noped out of there without another word. I remember being really worried about that puppy until we had an assembly at our primary school about things strangers might say to lure you into their vehicles. Number 5, Oh, Hello. From Redditor Grumpy Dietitian, this happened to a friend of mine. It was a Sunday. She came home to her apartment from running errands around 1 p.m. She was in med school at this time, so she pretty much parked herself at the kitchen table and studied for the next 5 to 6 hours. She was sitting there when she looked up to see a dude casually stroll out of her bedroom. There are no other entrances and she's been sitting by the front door, so he was there the entire time she has been home. He paused at the doorway to her kitchen between her and the door. She basically froze. Then her phone rang and kind of startled both of them. She ran to the phone and he ran out of the door. She moved and got an enormous dog, and he was in her apartment the whole time. This is one of my biggest fears. Number 4, smiling from afar. From Redditor CDC_, when I was a child, I was always stricken by this irrational fear that when I went outside at night, I had to walk straight into the house without looking back, because if I looked back, someone would be following me. One day after dinner, I went out to the car to get my book bag, and I was continuing my ritual of walking straight inside without looking back. Adrenaline pumping, anxiety going full force, and I just stopped and said to myself, "This is stupid." I made myself look back. When I looked back, I saw what appeared to be someone crouched down behind my mom's car and was peeking their head around. They were just staring at me and smiling. It appeared to be a woman in her mid-30s, maybe 40, with curly short blonde hair. We made eye contact for a second, and then she ducked back behind the car where I couldn't see her. I stood frozen for a second and then ran inside. I told my mom, we went outside to check, no one was there. My mom didn't exactly not believe me, but she wasn't very concerned either. Number 3, followed by 2 guys. From Redditor Ginger Attacks, I was walking home from the beach one day around noon, and a guy driving down the street in a Ford Escape slows down, and in slightly broken English asks me how much. I tell him to get away from me, and he tells me $200 for an hour. At this point, I'm walking faster and his car is keeping up pace with me. He crosses 2 lanes and parks in a driveway in front of me and opens his door, and a passenger door opens as well. Another guy steps out and walks towards me. I start screaming my head off and cussing them out, trying to draw attention on this busy street while fishing my knife out of my bag. I walked into the street and around the corner called my boyfriend and told them it's the cops. I gave my boyfriend their license plate number and almost ran to his house because it was about a block away. They followed me for another minute and then drove past me really fast while calling me names. I was 16 at the time, and I really wish I had called the cops because as an adult, I'm 100% sure I was about to be taken. Number 2, persistent. From Redditor LMNOP, when I was younger, my dad was out of town and my mom let me have a few friends over. We lived right by a pretty busy highway, and over 3 years, we had quite a few people knock on our door for help. Car broke down, lost, accident, etc. While my mom was home with us, a man knocked saying he wanted to borrow the phone. My mother told him he could sit on the porch and use her cell phone. The man kept asking to come inside and asking if my dad was home. He eventually started trying to force his way inside. My mom slammed and locked the door, called 911, and put me and my friends into a closet. It took the police department 20 minutes to reach us. By that time, my mom had called our neighbor and he came over and made a guy lie on the ground until the police arrived. Number 1, watching from the window. From Redditor Such T2, several years ago I lived in a semi-underground basement apartment. Basically, the house was just enough underground that the windows were just a couple of inches off the ground on the outside. So one night I'm washing dishes in the kitchen, which had a window to my left, which was open. I'm almost finished when a voice whispers, "Looking good there with the dishes." There was someone crouched down by the window on the outside who had been watching me for who knows how long. Unfortunately for the creep boy, I was washing the knives, and as I turned, he evidently got scared by the gigantic one I was brandishing in his general direction, and he ran off. I hated that apartment. Thanks for watching. Those were 10 scary stranger danger incidents that will creep you out. Leave a like and comment if you think we missed anything, and we hope you have a scary day.